Welcome to my first tutorial video of Lightroom. This is going to be like the very basic stuff. So if you have no idea how to use Lightroom, maybe you've never even opened it, maybe you don't even have it yet and you just want to see what it's about, I've got my notes here, not very much. So this is basically going to cover the very basics of Lightroom. What I like to do is I like to start from the camera. You're going to want to have a raw footage. Or JPEG works. I know some people that shoot JPEG very well and edit with JPEG, but for me, my personal thing, raw is very good with the colors, and everything stays kind of good. Like your quality stays pretty good when you start tweaking a bunch of stuff. So like I said, this is going to be a very, very basic video. We're just going to run through just the settings and stuff, and we're going to make an image look pretty cool using just the basic stuff. Then we're gonna have part two, which is gonna be like, you know, intermediate, which is gonna be adding some colors and like more like insane stuff, starting to get into making it look really good. And then we're gonna go advanced, like dodging and burning and adding gradient tools and stuff and lights and more sun, you know, more orange. Just gonna make that, like the overall image look very addicting. And that will be the advanced stuff. So there's probably going to be, I'm going to guess, 3 parts of this video. This is part 1, welcome. I hope you enjoy it. And let's hop on the computer, get up Lightroom. We're going to do an awesome sunset photo. It looks flat. Like this image, why I chose this is because when I was standing there looking up at this sunset, it looked 3D, like right in my face, like the clouds were so close and far. And then I come back and it looks all flat on this video. So we're gonna change that using these basic settings, and we're gonna make this sunset more like how I saw it. Okay, so we're on Lightroom now, and you wanna get your images from your drive. So mine are on the desktop and they're keep for vids, and we don't want all of them. We're gonna work with this one right here. And then you're gonna check the ones you want. In this case, I don't need any of these right now. These are for later. Then you're gonna hit import. And so right now you're just in your library. This is like your overview of what you have. Now you're gonna go to develop and you're gonna click on your photo you want. So we're looking at this, you've got all these tools here. You've got a crooked horizon, a beautiful sunset though, a little plane up there. And we're gonna go straight down the line here. First of all, what I wanna do first is the best thing to do is get your horizon level. You can use this tool right here, it's called angle. Or you can just turn it like this and use these lines. I'm gonna use angle right here. So I'm gonna get one part as best I can on that horizon and get it right there. I love it. Bam, hit enter. Now, I like to do exposure and contrast a little after I go through this stuff. So I'm gonna take these highlights here. This is your exposure is gonna be your brightness and darkness. Contrast is just gonna like little saturation, clarity kind of deal over here. Your highlights are what you should probably kind of do first. So when I drop these down, see the sun, it's gonna get darker and it's gonna get brighter. I want the full quality in the clouds. So I'm gonna drop this about 40 or so. And you can always go, I like to do is you can just play with it. You can go up a little bit and you can see, oh, do I like that? Or you can go all the way down and you go, oh, that's a little too dark. So I'm gonna bring it probably just about there. Then your shadows are gonna be the opposite of your highlights. These are your highlights. Your shadows are gonna be the darker stuff, like here, up in the clouds, the non-sunny side of the clouds. So when we drop these hard, you can see all that stuff gets darker and lighter. I'm gonna wanna lighten my shadows in this. So I'm gonna go probably gonna go about 80 looks pretty good. And we'll get, like this vignette here, we'll get rid of later or keep it if it's your style. And for whites, you're gonna hold Windows button or your Mac button, and you're gonna get just a couple little dots in there of white, which is what I like. So I'm gonna, right where I shot it at 0 is perfect. You can use by the way, you can use your mouse to do this, or you can just use your numbers here. But I like to play with it first before I put in my numbers. And see, it still looks kind of flat, right? Doesn't give that 3D effect like right in your face how I saw it. So I'm gonna add drop the blacks a little bit just to get it going, like probably about 27 range. So it's looking, you know, it's still actually pretty dark, the overall image. So this is when we're gonna go back to exposure. I'm gonna crank that up half a stop, so 0.50. And then we're gonna go bam with this contrast here. And so now it's starting to look more like how I saw it, just not the colors yet. So here's a before and after. We'll shift Y to see that. So the after's looking a little bit brighter, the horizon's looking good, and we're gonna go on from there. I'm gonna add a little bit of clarity in this shot. Remember, this is just the basic stuff too. I'm just going straight down the line here of like what these things mean and what they are. We're not gonna add too many colors and play with that yet. So clarity is almost like that, like to make your picture like a little bit more higher quality. Like look, if I go all the way up, see how much more 3D that adds and like the better quality it looks than down here. It looks a little more foggy. But the downside of clarity is it generally rips the color out of your picture. So I like to just do a little bit. On something like this, I'm gonna do like 15, not too much at all. And you can always go later back in the picture and add some more clarity in here. I just don't want to do it to the overall picture. Now, to get the picture a little bit more colorful, like how I saw it with my own eyes, we're going to do vibrance. So this is dropping the vibrance, very little color in there. And this is going to increase the vibrance, but we don't want obviously that much. So I always like to do around like 20 or 30 for landscape. So there. Did you see the difference that I made it? Look at the blues and the orange and stuff, it bam, pops them into place. Saturation is kind of the same thing, just very overall and very exaggerated. I like to leave my saturation kind of at 0, or maybe I'll go like 2. And then we're gonna move on to, this is the tone curve. I'll explain this more in the other video. But this, you want to do like an S-curve type of view, but we're not going to do that yet. This is kind of like a mini tone curve kind of thing, but this gets way into popping your tones and stuff more to get a more tony and moody sort of picture. So now we're going to go down to this hue, saturation, luminance, HSL board, and I'm just going to exaggerate and change some of these. So you can see there's not too many reds in this shot. Orange is going to pop. See, this is going to take the oranges in your shot, and if you dump it this way, it's going to make them red. Go this way, it's going to make them like a greenish yellow. So I like personally, this was a little bit more reddish color. So I'm going to drop it down a little bit, just a little bit. The more you change all these a little bit, your image is going to change a lot in the end. You're just not going to notice it too much at first yet. Then we're going to go to the yellows. I like to just drastically change it and just see where it takes me. Okay, so I know I don't want to go right, I want to go left. I'm going to go a little bit more ham on the yellows, maybe a little bit more on the orange too. And so now we have like a more reddish sunset. I'm going to leave the greens, and I really do like this color blue here, so I'm not going to change the hue of this blue. Okay, I'm not going to change the hue of that because I like the color it is there. It's a very natural looking color. Now, instead of changing the colors, now I'm going to go to saturation and saturate or bring in more color in this image. So through the hue, we couldn't see too much red, so I'm just going to leave that where it is. The orange I really liked, so I'm just going to add a little bit more saturation in the orange and yellow is like what I edited. See, that's a lot. And that actually looks pretty good, but not on the water so much. So I'm going to bring that down to like 7. And I'm going to tap the blue up just a little bit. We'll do 10 on the blues. And then luminance, this is how bright each color is going to be. So you saw there wasn't too much red. Maybe you want the red to be more noticed. So I'm going to light that up, or I'm going to smash it dark like that. I'm not going to bother with either in this image. I'm going to darken this a little bit because see how it looks kind of white? There's like a white glaze over it. So I'm going to drop this a little bit, get those oranges a little bit more dark, get some color going in here. The yellows, I'm going to drop maybe, it's just experimenting. I'm going to drop this about a quarter way. And the blues, I'm going to leave that. They look pretty good where they are. See, that it kind of drains the color or adds a bunch of color, and I'm just going to go a little negative on there. Now, this is where you can go up to the white balance and you can play with this. So here's your temperature of the shot. You want it to look, maybe you wanted to make this shot look a little bit more colder, so you're gonna add some blue. Or if you wanted to make it look more like a sunset, you're gonna add a little bit more yellow, orangey type of thing. And then here's your tint. For a sunset, you're gonna wanna add a little bit more, I'm exaggerating these by the way, you're gonna add a little bit more magenta rather than green, unless if that's what you're going for. I like to add a little bit more magenta. So this is at 8. I'm gonna crank this up to, we'll try 15. That looks pretty good. Looks nice little magenta look there. I'm not gonna mess with this too much because this is gonna kill the color that you just made kind of good down here. Watch, notice as I go up here, it sucks the blue and magenta out a little bit along the clouds and up in the sky, and it really lights up the place. I do like that, but I'm gonna keep it down a little bit, and I'm gonna do, let's do 5200, and we'll check that out. Whoops. But I mean 6200. Let's do 6200 and check what that looks like. I like that. We'll go up a little more, 6300. So that just added a little bit more. Probably not too noticeable, but overall it's very noticeable as you start to look. This is your split toning. So you're gonna take those highlights. Remember these highlights up here? You're gonna take these highlights, which there's a lot in this photo, and you're going to make it a certain color. So I'm just gonna hit this one as an example. So that drops your highlights and sucks all the yellow out of it. You can lower the saturation to make it better, but so blue is gonna suck all this beautiful, orange yellowish out of it, the sunset clear. So I wanna promote that. So I'm gonna go click here on this one, bam. And I'm gonna exaggerate it a little bit just to see how it looks, and I love that. And I'm gonna just bring it down probably to about 20, we'll do 22 for good luck. So as you can see, that did kind of dump the blues, but it promoted the nice sunset color in the clouds. And also this is your off button, so everything you just did, like here, all your hue, saturation, just everything you did right here, you can toggle this on and off. So this is what it looks like before. You see how white that is, and this is just the hue and saturation. That's what it looks like after, bam. So I kind of use that to tell the difference of what I just did. So you can see that's a nice thing, but it's a little bit too much in like these clouds. Like up here, you're not going to see too much orange in that part. You're going to see it more in here, same down here. So I'm going to add a little blue in there. And this one's a little bit too much for me because it just drains your photo. So I'm going to add this one just slightly less. You can also just grab this and customize it too. But these are kind of easy with sunset. So I'm just going to click here. I'm gonna keep that at 12. I like where that is. So this is the difference this made. Very subtle, but overall brightness and clarity's looking pretty good on this. So this is your sharpening. I like to zoom in and just check how my stuff looks. So there's not too much noise here. Noise is gonna be these little dots and like weird looking colors like reds and greens, all this noisy looking stuff. So that's not too bad. So I'm just gonna do 5. This is gonna reduce that noise, which there isn't much, so I'm not gonna really, normally you might not even wanna do anything to that, but I'm just gonna keep it like that. And I'm gonna keep the sharpness how it is because we messed with the clarity a little bit, so 25's fine by me. And we're gonna skip all this noise reduction stuff because we just reduced the noise. Here's where it gets a little nice. Your camera records the lens you shot in and all the settings. Enable profile corrections is gonna take out this vignette around it, the natural vignette, and it's gonna shape the image correctly to what your lens distorted. Your roundness of your lens distorts it a little bit. So I'm gonna click that. And as you can see, it kind of flipped the sides a little bit and the center got pushed back a little bit to make it look a little bit more, how flatter, like how a picture would look. And remove chromatic aberrations is gonna be, sometimes you'll get like a purple haze. I don't know if you've seen this, mostly in portraits. You get like a purplish haze around your pictures. And removing that is always just a safe thing to do. And for leveling, we already leveled this picture. I love how it's leveled right now. So I'm not gonna change that. But if you wanna do it quickly, your Lightroom will know. It'll see this horizon and it should know what to do. Sometimes it's a little bit weird, so you're gonna go here and do it yourself. But most of the time I'll just hit level and see where it takes me. But in this case, we already did it through the cropping. And so here's your vignette. If you wanna add that vignette back in, you drop it down. If you wanna take it away even more, you bring it back up. So I'm gonna add that vignette. I liked it a little bit. Not as much as it was, so we're gonna drop it probably about here. I kind of like the darker sides. And this is grain, so watch as I zoom in here. We're gonna crank up the grain, which is gonna add these little little specks in here, and you can change the size of the grain to make those specks even bigger. This is like a very trendy thing on Instagram to do. It adds like a little old-fashioned look. But for a landscape in this situation, in my style, I'm not gonna add grain in this. I think it's just gonna take away from the quality, see? And it's gonna make it look flatter. On a portrait, maybe yes. And this is, so camera calibration is something you kind of wanna do after you do all this. But in this situation, I kind of did white balance up here. But so you have all these options. You're gonna have a couple, like just starting out without putting any presets in or anything. Like I have Visco stuff, so those are presets. So you're gonna have like this camera stuff right here. And these are like the only ones I use. So we're gonna just cycle through these. Here's standard, here's camera faithful, which is gonna kind of drop the color and add a little more saturation. Then landscape, this is a landscape, so you might wanna look into this one. And yes, I like this one. The color is a lot harder, way more hardcore. It makes it look a little less faded here, but it looks a little too much. Like this looks a little exaggerated for my taste. So you can use these to kind of change it up. This is gonna drop the saturation, just hue and saturation, just like up there. Just down here, it's just gonna be a little bit more hardcore. So I'm gonna crank the magenta up a little bit. You know how I like my magenta. So that adds a little magenta in the shadows and the clouds up there. And this red, so I'm gonna change the hue a little bit. That's way too messed up. So I'm just gonna drop the saturation here. Just a tiny little hair. That's way too much. I'm just gonna drop it by like 12. Maybe 15. Just to get the image a little bit better. It looks a little too much still. That looks good right there. And then you can kind of just play with these. I kind of like how it is now, but you can always just play with these and see what you get. Like I don't like that, it's terrible. So I'm gonna conclude like that. I love how it is right now. And this is just using all the basic settings. We'll get into the advanced one in the next video. So next video is gonna be in the description. I think I covered everything that's kind of the more basic stuff. So when you're gonna save this, your photo down here, there's gonna be a lot sometimes, there's gonna be a little sometimes. You're gonna go to export, and you can export with your previous stuff, but if this is your first time opening it, you're just gonna click export. I'm gonna choose my desktop and just bring it right there. Choose, and you're gonna wanna go down and make sure your quality is just high. And you know, if you want it on something else, I love JPEG and I like the RGB scale, so you probably don't want to change any of that. Just crank that quality up. You can change the name and stuff up here and export. And it's going to export your photo to the desktop and you're done. Look at this beautiful photo. So thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. I hope this taught you quite a bit.